And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Ryan Belmore, and I am the owner of What's Up Newp. We are jumping from live stream to live stream today. It is just a busy Friday, as they would say. The governor just wrapped up her press briefing, and you can catch that completely. We just recorded it. It is available on What's Up Newp. But joining us right now, and he has very limited time. He's a very busy man, and he is the Secretary of Commerce. And Secretary of Commerce Stefan Pryor joins us. Good afternoon.
Good to be with you.
And you probably, hopefully, just watched the governor's press briefing as well. Any big takeaways or anything you'd like to explain a little bit deeper here from her press briefing today?
I think what's evident from her briefing is that the governor is undertaking the reopening process very thoughtfully. And she's thinking about the movement between phases very carefully. Rhode Island is ahead of our immediate region in reopening. As a matter of fact, we start ahead. Rhode Island kept major industries open that other nearby states closed. Manufacturing, construction. We kept them open all the way through the crisis, and they're still open. Of course, consulting with industry on public health guidance and safeguards. Now we've begun the reopening before our neighbors. We've reopened retail. Non-critical retail was permitted to reopen last Saturday. And moving into Monday, we're permitting the reopening of restaurants for outdoor seating, also the first in our immediate region. The governor's going about this very deliberately, step by step. And what she has expressed, and she explained today, is that we want to avoid any kind of a new surge of cases, anything that would throw off our very favorable public health trends. And we want to focus on the economy and make sure that we get people back to work in that context.
Now, Secretary Pryor, one of the things that certainly confused me, and you heard a lot of the reporters in the room asking it today, is she said that there is going to be about a month, at least approximately a month, between the start of each phase. Many of us, I know many business owners, thought that there was a 2-week period between phases. Is that the way you understood it the entire time? Can you speak to the month that will go from phase 1 to phase 2? I know many restaurants along westerly Newport County were really hoping, many businesses were really hoping on some expansion in time for Memorial Day, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen anymore.
I think what's important to understand is that, as the governor indicated, we don't fully control the timeline. The virus controls the timeline. And what the governor means by that is we can advance when we know it's safe and sound and sensible to advance. What that means is we need to know that we've gotten the data back on the reopening activity that we've already undertaken before we start to do more. We need to make sure that we know how many cases of infection have arisen. We need to know how the hospitalizations are trending, how many people are on the intensive care unit, how many people are on ventilators. We need to know that we are tracking these data so as to keep Rhode Islanders healthy first and foremost as we reopen the economy. If you rush and you proceed from phase to phase before you even have a coherent set of data, you're not undertaking this process safely and soundly. Now, having said that, we are moving more rapidly than our immediate neighbors. We're moving faster than the region. So on a relative basis, for sure, we are ahead. We need to make sure we stay that way, in that we advance in a way that lets us continuing to move forward rather than having to take big steps back.
Now, Secretary Pryor, you mentioned the road ahead and down the road. Now, is your office working with the governor? I've heard from a lot of restaurants and businesses that, you know, they understand the timeline and that this is a disease. There's no playbook. I think we can all, if we can't agree on everything, we can agree that there's no playbook for shutting down and reopening like this out there. But is your goal or your hope to be able to tell, listen, we don't know when this is going to happen, but this is what you need in order to take that step when we're ready to take that step? Are you working on communication for further down the road of what restaurants or businesses should be ready to do?
Oh, we sure are. Absolutely. Let's take restaurants. We've had numerous conference calls and Zoom sessions with restaurateurs through the Hospitality Association, through the Greater Newport Chamber, through the other restaurant groups that exist on a regional basis within our state, within our state area groupings. We've had numerous conversations with restaurants, and in those conversations, we've explained that we're aiming for a June reopening for indoor seating, perhaps early June. And that what we want to do is ensure that those restaurants who choose outdoor seating are successful, that we can model the practices that can be applied indoors, and we can have a continuous and seamless transition to indoor dining without having to take steps backwards. So we've had those conversations, and I'm glad to share that out here on this program. We'll continue to communicate extensively. And we're doing that with other sectors too. We're having frequent Zoom calls and conference calls with various sectors and settings.
The governor, as well as many in the health profession, have said, we're a year away. Sometime this time next year, we might have vaccine, something to control this. Your plans, the state's plans, how far do you see businesses getting back to normal, either capacity or business? Are we going to get to 100% anytime this year of capacity or of no restrictions?
Well, we should be, when you put it in those terms, very reasonable way to ask the question. When you put it in those terms, I don't think it's immediately foreseeable that we'll be in an environment with no restrictions. Let's face the reality together. This is not the Commerce Secretary speaking or an administration representative speaking. This is a human being on this planet speaking. We are going to be wearing face masks for as long as this virus is not eradicated or that there isn't a vaccine for it. We are going to be restricting our interactions with one another so long as this virus is still among us. Now, I hope and pray daily for its eradication. So I do think that we will have restored very substantial parts of the economy before the day when this virus is no more. Therefore, I do think there will continue to be restrictions in place even when we are at much greater capacity within the various settings and sectors, office-based businesses, manufacturing and construction, hotels, and these industries that we've started to reopen already, retail and restaurant. I think we will continue to have restrictions that make it more practical and employ precautions in order to keep Rhode Islanders safe when we go about our lives.
What do you think we can guesstimate? And that's all we can do right now. July, August, are we looking at 50% of capacity in most of our businesses?
I don't want to preview the possible guidelines or preempt the governor's ability to issue them with all the benefit of public health input and best practices. We're tracking how other countries have responded to and recovered from the coronavirus. And we're tracking how other states that have reopened sooner because they have fewer cases or have such inclination outside of this region, how they're doing. So I don't want to preempt that. I will say that percentage capacity and occupancy guidelines are the method we are likely to use. Some of those will be on a percentage of space in accordance with fire marshal determinations of capacity. Some of those guidelines will be in accordance with people per square foot, where the fire marshal doesn't easily have a capacity measure. It depends on the setting. So that's why I wouldn't simply say 50% or something of that nature, because it would be inaccurate. But you can get a feel for how we will go about it with what has happened with non-critical retail. With non-critical retail, we've said that one person per every 300 square feet is the right guidance in phase one. And you could imagine that we will enable greater density in subsequent phases along the way, anyway, in the course of rolling into phases 2 and 3. One person per 300 square foot in a small store is 1 or 2 people. In a larger store, it starts to become greater numbers. That's what it is. So we keep ourselves very safe as we reacquaint ourselves with shopping, with working in an office in the midst of these restrictions.
I know you're a very busy man, so a couple quick questions I keep getting asked on, and hopefully it will help some phone calls to your office. Haven't heard it brought up much at all. Nightclubs, live music venues, theater halls, are they out of commission until further notice? When do you see people being able to go to a bar and see a live band?
Large numbers in a constrained location with no fixed location in that place, those are hard. Worldwide, those are hard. Places where people inherently intermingle, bump into each other, where that's part of the scene and part of the fun. Unfortunately, the virus preys upon exactly that. And we don't want to have outbreaks that grow uncontrolled before we even know that they're occurring. So we have to be very cautious around those settings. Hey, I enjoy going to performing arts venues, going to some of our night spots and restaurants, in the evenings. I enjoy that as well. All of us want to get back to that, but we also want to be a state that enables work and life without the fear of runaway outbreaks and widespread infections. So those are the hardest. We will look to allow small numbers of people to gather again in different settings where people can be kept separate reliably and continuously. And, so we're thinking about that kind of scenario for very small scale, perhaps outdoor fitness, where you can just be a handful of people. And you can imagine the analogy could apply in other settings, maybe starting outdoors as we have for restaurants. Small gatherings within these social gathering guidelines. Right now it's 5 people, but we're not all the way there yet. I'm hinting at the future.
Of course, I'm sure you get this question probably more than most. When do you see hotels, short-term rentals being able to take reservations from out-of-state guests?
Well, they can take reservations now. Out-of-state guests merely need to quarantine, and I recognize that's a significant.
But yeah, that gets expensive.
But they're not prohibited from registering at all. They need to quarantine for 2 weeks as the policy stands. What we're tracking in order to understand when that policy can be revised is how our nearby states are doing. Much of the visitation to Rhode Island is by day trippers. People predominantly visit the island from our nearest by states. So long as New York and Massachusetts are still hotspots, if you will, and other nearby states have significant numbers of cases, we need to be cognizant of that, and we need to ensure that we protect Rhode Islanders. Having said that, we want a vibrant scene, vacations, tourism scene in Rhode Island. We're renowned for it. So we want to strike the right balance. Maybe there's a way to take into account those states that do and do not have their own restrictions in place. Maybe we can take that into account. Maybe we can take into account the public health. Maybe we can develop cooperative policies with the 7 states that make up this new regional council and regional consortium. In the northeastern and mid-Atlantic section of the country, we formed a state group. We weekly, sometimes even more frequently. And one of the topics that Rhode Island has helped to put on the table is regional travel and tourism. We have asked the group think about such policies so that we arrive at some common sense solutions that will enable us all to at least reintroduce some state-to-state travel for the purpose of recreation, leisure, and tourism.
And I think this will fall under small business administration, but I will share it with you because it's up there and you might have some insight. Disaster loans are still under review after 2 months. Any information on any loans or assistance coming from the state that your office can give.
Could you hold just a moment? I'm having trouble hearing you. It's breaking up. Just give me a split second here.
Yeah, no problem at all.
I actually, there's nothing I can do to fix it. I think it's on your end, but I could be wrong. I can't discern your.
Let's see if you can answer this question.
I think we unfortunately
All right.
our difficulties on one of our ends here, Ryan.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you and your time today, and we will chat again soon.